2 days away. We have a panel full of experts and so much to get to regarding the finals. But I want to start by going straight to JJ Redick. As you know, the Celtics, the Warriors, they're the top two defensive teams in the NBA. At least they were in the regular season. You made a career, though, out of making the lives of defenders incredibly difficult. So in a series that's filled with offensive powerhouses, you'd think it would be Steph or Clay or Jason Tatum. But what player do you think will be the key to unlocking their team's offense here?
Look, I really liked what I saw from Robert Williams II at times during that Eastern Conference Finals. I thought he was phenomenal in Game 4 specifically. And what he provides is a vertical lob threat. He provides offensive rebound, of course, the interior defense. But when I look at who the Warriors have played so far in the playoffs, they haven't played a player that is that vertical lob threat and that offensive rebounder that the Celtics have in Robert Williams II. And, of course, look, we're showing a lot of defensive highlights here. That was the one issue that we saw over and over again in that Mavs series. They did not have interior defense. They had no rim protection. And that's what he provides for the Celtics. A
healthy Robert Williams. Interesting. JJ, thank you so much. Please do not go too far, because if we're talking about big men in this series, that means we need to bring in our resident big man, and that is Big Perk to break down the battle on the down low. Kendrick, which of these two teams do you think has the front court edge, my friend?
You know what? I got to go with the Boston Celtics. And here's why. When I look at Robert Williams and I look at Al Horford, that tandem is one of the best defensive tandems that I've seen in a long time for its bigs. It reminds me of a 2008 tandem when they had Kendrick Perkins and Kevin Garnett. Nobody wanted to see that. They're tied together like shoelaces. You're watching those guys when they're able to rotate offensively. Look, Robert Williams being a lob threat at the basket, like JJ said, opens up driving lanes for Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Marcus Smart. Because you have to honor that he is a lob threat, so the guy that's guarding him is hesitant to go and block his shot. And then you have Al Horford, who can mix it up. He either roll into the basket or he could pick and pop and knock down that three-point shot. So when I look at this series, I'm giving the edge to the Boston Celtics as far as the front court.
You know, I think I might agree with you, Big Perk, but don't count out Kevon Looney. So from the big man matchup, that'll be a pivotal one. But there's a reason that the adage defense win championships. It exists, Matt Barnes. Your defensive prowess, you are known for it. We have 2 games with some of the best defenders in the finals between Marcus Smart and Draymond Green. Who do you think is the best defender in this series? I know it's tough.
You guys put me on the spot here, and it's hard to go against the defensive player of the year in Marcus Smart, but I'm choosing Draymond Green.
Ooh.
The simple fact of his experience and his versatility. He's someone who can switch and guard 1 through 5. For guys that have contested at least 200 shots in the playoffs, he's holding his opponents to the lowest field goal percentage, which is 28%. So he does it on both ends, also 4th in blocks. So I just really love playoff Draymond, and particularly championship Draymond, because you know he's going to come out with his best.
Absolutely. And that team seems to go as Draymond Green goes in a lot of ways. All right, before we look ahead even further, I do want to look back at the 2 matchups this season between the Celtics and the Warriors. So here's what went down. Remember, it was the first matchup in it was in Boston, December 17th. Steph Curry, fresh off becoming the NBA's all-time three-point leader, he got it going early, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, this is Steph. What interests me in this, Malika, and obviously we're going to get to that, is both teams won on the opponent's floor.
Yeah.
Which is going to be huge to me in the finals. Who's going to be able to do that in the finals?
Well, particularly because in the last series of the Eastern Conference Finals, what we saw was home advantage won the day for a lot of it up until the very end when we're looking at those last 2 games. But here you can see Steph Curry patented behind the back.
Too much.
Putting some icing on the cake. Golden State would go on to walk away with this one. But, you know, revenge is best served cold. So let's go ahead to the second time that we saw these 2 teams in the season. It was March 16th. Remember, Boston struggled early. This is March. No longer struggling in this one. Watch here, though. Steph Curry gets tangled up with Marcus Smart on the floor. Comes up hobbling a little bit. This is when Steph missed some significant time after injuring his ankle.
This is just a great hustle play, and unfortunately, you know, Steve Kerr saw it a different way, taking up for his players. But, you know, Marcus Smart is the ultimate hustler, defensive player of the year, and all he was doing was going after the ball. And that kind of stuff happens sometimes. It's just unfortunate it happened to Steph.
Absolutely. So Steve Kerr, Marcus Smart still going back and forth. Remember, Steph would not return to the game. He ended up missing the remainder of the regular season. And this is when Boston really created some separation. Jason Tatum doing what he does, getting it all the way to the hoop and one. Let's listen into both teams talking about each other ahead of game one.
You're asking me who I want to play. I'm going to tell you who I think we're going to play. We're going to play Boston.
Okay,
That's who we're going to play.
Thank you.
Man, what a time to be alive. You and yours versus me and mine.
Boston is a hell of a team.
They're hungry and they play hard, so it'll be a challenge.
We know what's in front of us. We know what we're here to play for, and I don't think any of our guys are awed or intimidated by the moment at all. We understand what it is. We know the opponent in front of us.
There's just something about playing in Boston that feels special. We only play there once a year in the regular season, but it always feels like a special game, so it's exciting to be playing them.
There's always been battles. They've had some success, but I'm excited about a playoff series where there's in-game and in-series adjustments happen, and it should be fun.
So the Celtics are 9-7 against the Warriors since Steve Kerr took over in 2014, but this surprised me, Matt. Boston is the only team in the NBA with a winning record against Golden State in that span. The only one. Despite the fact that the rosters for both teams have changed, they've evolved over the years, the Celtics, they've been able to just consistently give the Warriors problems. And we're looking at the big three, right? Dre, Clay, Steph, Steve Kerr, Marcus Smart, and Brad Stevens, I guess, is the constants there for most of that time. But why do you think the Celtics have consistently matched up so well against Golden State here?
They play defense, and they have defensive versatility, and particularly Marcus Smart against Steph Curry. He's given Steph Curry a lot of problems because his strength, his lateral movement, his feistiness, he's quick with his hands. And he's also, among guys who've guarded Steph, he's given Steph the fourth hardest defense against him. Steph is only shooting 29% against Marcus Smart in his career, which is the fourth worst for anyone who's guarded Steph. So Marcus Smart is just a constant, doesn't give up, doesn't play. He takes charges. He does everything you want to see in a defensive player, and I think obviously that's why he's hurt.
He's
the
a
Warriors
nuisance.
and Steph.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a nuisance. He's a dog. He doesn't give up. It's all the things you love to see. Numbers you mentioned, you can see them right there. You said it. He's been one of the best in the league at making life tough for Steph. But JJ, it's not just about Smart, right? What do the Celtics do schematically that gives Golden State a hard time?
Yeah, this is a defense that's built, truthfully, a lot like those Houston Rockets teams that gave the Warriors some trouble in the Western Conference playoffs back in 2018 era. They switch, and they, in the regular season, were the team that switched the most frequently, and in the playoffs, they're the second most frequently switched defense in the league. And so a lot of the Warriors' action, ball movement, high splits, post splits, you have to switch those. Matt knows we played against these teams when we were with the Clippers together. And if you look back at the Mavs series, they elected not to switch those split actions guard to guard. Klay Thompson came off for threes. He had 3 of them on that action alone in Game 5. And they got to the basket on curls because they weren't switching. So the Celtics naturally have a switching defense. They also have physical defenders. You have to be physical. There's no point switching. You have to be physical and switch at the point of the screen.
Kendrick, you watched a whole lot of Boston basketball. Go ahead. Yep.
No, both of them brought up great points. When you think about Marcus Smart, I want to add to that point with Matt. He's the instigator and not the retaliator when he's going against Steph Curry. So we saw in them clips where he actually was forcing him to go where he wanted him to go. I said this earlier today. I'm saying that now we haven't witnessed a guy that frustrate Marcus Smart the way frustrate Steph Curry the way that Marcus Smart does.
Yeah.
Steph Curry gets offensive fouls because he's pushing off, things to that nature. And then I want to dive into JJ's point with the switching. The clips that we were watching with the switching just now, they were switching with a high IQ, meaning they were switching point of contact, but the guy who was getting screened, he was going under to switch under so that it wasn't getting slips to the basket. See, that's the thing that separates the Boston Celtics from everybody else that the Warriors has played and why they're the best defensive team in the league. Not only do they have the versatility, the length, and the athleticism, but they have the high IQ as basketball players. They have 5 or 6 guys, right? You think about Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, Robert Williams, and Grant Williams. Those 6 guys in particular are great defensive players. And when you have a roster stacked up that high for us defensive players, any team better watch the hell out.
And I just want to add to that, I think that the